Bocchi doesn't hide from people because she wants to be alone. She hides because she wants to be seen, but being seen feels like being judged. And if you have ever wanted to make friends, but froze when the moment was right in front of you, then you know why Bocchi isn't just comical, it's painfully relatable. Because the longer you hide, the louder the loneliness becomes. And when reaching out leaves you feeling unseen, then you may start wondering if anyone ever noticed you at all. So in this video, I want to use Bocchi as a mirror for why some of us want attention but hide from everyone, why being seen can feel so threatening, and how hiding can start to feel like proof that we were invisible all along. So the first thing that Bocchi shows us is what happens when anxiety starts to rule your entire life. Bocchi doesn't just want to become famous. She is desperate to be seen and to escape a constant state of loneliness. But the contradiction is that the very thing she wants also terrifies her. Because anxiety isn't just about being nervous around people. It's like being trapped inside a body and a mind that punishes you for the very thought of interacting with somebody. To other people, it's just a conversation. It's just saying hi. But for some of us, it feels like the moment we put ourselves out there, every part of us is being noticed. The way we stand, the way we speak, the expression on our face, the fact that we don't know where to put our hands. So we analyze every single detail because even one mistake feels like an invitation to be judged. So every interaction feels like an endurance battle. All the while, we might be worrying what this person thinks of us. Should I speak? Should I not speak? Am I pausing too long? Did I say something weird? Why did they look away? Did I do something to make them feel uncomfortable? Do they hate me? And before anything has even happened at all, your mind may have punished you for 1,000 possibilities that never came true. You may already experience an imagined version of yourself where you embarrass yourself, get rejected, or prove something is wrong with you. So sometimes it feels safer not to say anything. You stand there, listening, waiting for the perfect time to jump in, but that perfect time never arrives. So then it not only feels too awkward to speak, it feels too awkward to leave. So you may just end up waiting for someone else to leave first so you can just sit by unnoticed. And somehow you end up feeling lonelier in those moments than if you had just stayed home. This is the contradiction Bocchi lives with. She wants connection, but her body treats it like danger. She wants to be noticed, but being noticed feels unbearable. And she wants to be seen, but she's afraid of people finding out who she really is. Because often under the anxiety is a part of you that you may have already rejected. They don't know you the way you know yourself, so you may feel the need to hide that. Maybe they'll see how awkward you are. Maybe they'll think you're weird. Maybe they'll think you're a loser. So everything starts to feel animated, and we may end up playing out someone else's life, hoping that this version of us will be easier to accept. But this becomes painful when people start liking this version that we're performing, because underneath we might still be wondering, would they like me if they knew who I really was? And when we get too caught up in that act, it can become harder to accept our sense of who we are. And this can lead into the second thing that Bocchi shows us, being performative instead of authentic. Bocchi starts learning to play guitar because she wants friends. But instead of joining a club or learning from others, or having awkward conversations that might lead to something meaningful, she spends 3 years practicing alone. So when she finally has the courage to show up, she doesn't reach out. She thinks that if she looks enough like a musician, people won't be able to help but notice. If she becomes good enough, maybe she doesn't have to introduce herself. Maybe people will naturally approach her. Maybe they'll validate her. Maybe they will make the first move. So when Bocchi brings her CDs to school and changes her outfit, she isn't just looking for attention. It's that she's trying to solve the most painful part of connection, having to initiate, the risk of rejection, and being awkward in front of others. And I can relate to this, because I did so many things just to get people to notice. I changed my outfit, I colored my hair, I played music in public, anything that I could think of, so that someone would notice me without me having to reach out first. But when it didn't work, it didn't feel just disappointing. It felt like shining a magnifying glass on just how lonely and pathetic I felt. And instead of feeling connected, I just withdrew further into myself. So when I decided to go to a club, or 2, or 3, and I saw other people having fun and not being able to join in, it felt like proof that maybe I really am invisible. But the craving for attention doesn't simply go away. So we may retreat within our mind and fantasize over what it would be like to finally be noticed. We may imagine a better, more confident version of ourselves that finally gets the attention that we've been missing. A version that doesn't have to guess whether people like us, because the attention is already there. Because if real life makes you feel invisible, then imagination can give you a version of yourself that is impossible to ignore. But the relief is short-lived, because real connection cannot be replaced by the fantasy of it. That's like trying to satisfy hunger by imagining food. So when the fantasy fades, you're left with the same loneliness you were trying to escape. And if you already believe that you're invisible, that loneliness can start to feel like evidence, because you try to be noticed and it didn't work. So maybe no one wants to be my friend after all. And this is the third thing that Bocchi shows us, when hiding becomes proof that you're invisible. Bocchi wants to connect, but she is afraid of being seen, so she hides. And hiding can give her a moment of peace, where she doesn't have to be judged, rejected, or be found out. But the more she hides, the fewer chances people have to reach her. But the fewer chances people have to reach out, the more invisible Bocchi feels. So what started out as protection can slowly start to become proof that she was always invisible. And this is how anxiety can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Not because the fear was always true, but because the fear can start shaping our experiences. We may hide because we feel unwanted, but then the distance becomes evidence that no one wanted us in the first place. And it makes sense, because avoidance works for a short time. The moment you avoid the situation, your anxiety drops. It may give you a moment of relief, a moment to breathe, a place to feel safe. So Bocchi is just trying to protect herself, but this comes at the cost of her world getting smaller and that self-defeating belief growing larger. And the pain of not being seen may run deeper if people might not even realize that you're suffering. Because maybe you've hidden it so well, other people can't tell. So they can't respond to a pain that they can't see. But sometimes the pain isn't the only thing we may conceal, but our very interesting wanting to connect in the first place. Because we may have stopped sending signals that we even want to join. We stop showing people that we want to be included. And even when we try to speak, sometimes the conversation moves on without us. Someone cuts in, talks over us, or doesn't even hear us. But when it took everything within you to speak, being interrupted feels like evidence that your voice isn't worth making space for. And although we may feel all this, we may have spoken so quietly, hesitated so much, or pulled back too quickly that people may not have realized how much we were trying. When I look back, I put up walls, and I distanced myself from everyone. I made it difficult for people to reach out, because I was too afraid of being vulnerable. So when I pushed people away, it felt like evidence that no one cared. But at that point, I was just feeding my own narrative. A narrative I might not have started, but I was now reinforcing. So no one was able to reassure my fears that they couldn't see, because I didn't let them. So when I think to myself, no one talks to me, no one notices me, no one cares, I treated that as confirmation without realizing that I was also reinforcing my own loneliness. And that's what's so frustrating about anxiety, because it leaves out the other half of the story. That my actions have kept me trapped in this situation. That I haven't let other people approach me, and when I do, sooner or later, I push them away. Because I would rather think that they have already rejected me than just waiting for it to happen. But maybe I was never rejected at all. Maybe I just didn't give other people a chance to get to know me, because I was too scared of getting hurt. But when you already believe that something is wrong with you, your mind might treat silence as confirmation. A person looking the other way, people on social media making plans without you, a day by yourself. To others it might just be an empty room, but for us, it can become a familiar place for our loneliness to fill. So we may hide more, while secretly hoping that if someone really cares, they'll notice without us having to ask. But that belief can trap us, because connection often requires some kind of signal. Bocchi wants to be found, but she is terrified of showing up as herself. All the while, her internal state is in constant conflict with her anxiety. the part of her that desperately wants to be seen with the part of her that wants to hide, which I think a lot of us can relate to. So we become a contradiction that craves attention without the capacity to handle it. You may want to be seen, but you may make yourself so small that other people can't notice you. And when no one reaches out, it might feel like no one ever wanted to. This is how hiding can become evidence. Not because the evidence is true, but because anxiety only shows us the parts of the story that confirms what we already fear. And if this happens to describe your experiences, it's okay. It's not about punishing yourself for wanting to be seen or for having anxiety in the first place. When you think of Bocchi, do you blame her for her anxiety or for avoiding connection? Do you blame her for fantasizing to escape her loneliness? Do you blame her for making herself so small that she goes unnoticed? I'm guessing you don't, because we know what it's like to want connection but be terrified by the thought of it. No matter how awkward, uncomfortable, or ridiculous Bocchi may appear, we can't help but love and cheer her on, because she deserves the friends she never had. And underneath her anxiety is someone worth getting to know. So my question for you is, what makes you any different from her? Because if your mind can look at Bocchi and say, she deserves friends, she deserves support, she deserves to be seen, and at the same time look at yourself and say, but I don't, then maybe that difference is worth noticing. Not because you may be able to think your way out of it in one moment, but it may show you the belief that your mind keeps returning to. Maybe the belief is that you don't deserve connection. Maybe the belief is that people would reject you if they knew who you were. Or maybe it's the belief that you have to become so much better before you're allowed to be seen. And when that belief is fueled by shame, fear, or loneliness, sometimes that's not something we can simply think our way out of. Sometimes the first step is to notice, instead of immediately believing it. So when anxiety shows up in your life, it's not about powering through. It's about noticing not just what I'm thinking, but what am I feeling, and where does that feeling come from? So when anxiety shows up in your life, what would happen if you sat with it instead of powering through? When I notice this cycle play out again, I try to stop and I think to myself, I'm feeling really tense and anxious right now. And maybe that's because I was bullied, teased, and humiliated as a kid. And that's okay, because it's not my fault that my body learned to treat connection like danger. So I try to sit with my feelings instead of trying to avoid them. And if you can recognize where that feeling might come from, you can ask yourself, what kind of support might help me to respond to it differently? The goal isn't to force yourself into situations that you're not ready for. And growth isn't always about throwing yourself into the biggest fear and hoping that you can push through it. Sometimes growth is learning to stay with yourself when anxiety shows up. It's noticing the urge to disappear, the urge to perform, and the urge to make yourself small. And noticing the story that no one ever wanted to be around you. Maybe the goal is not to stop wanting to be seen. Maybe the goal is to notice what you're hoping being seen will prove, and to slowly let connection happen, without needing to first become a perfect version of yourself. Because Bocchi doesn't grow by becoming fearless. She grows by learning to let people see her while she still feels awkward, anxious, and imperfect. Maybe connection doesn't start when we have everything figured out, but in the small moments when we stop disappearing from the people who are trying to get to know us. If you enjoyed this video, click this video here, where I talk about why some of us overachieve when we feel unappreciated.